Do you like to formulate cunning battle strategies, zoom very fast towards the enemy shouting "War," or steal everything that isn't nailed down? Provided you're also happy to deal out a fair amount of violence, then the Warhammer 40k Orks will have a clan for you. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy-focused 40k channel, where today we're talking Ork Clans. With a new Ork Codex, I thought it would be worth talking through the clans, as which one you choose to pick might well have a big impact on how you play your greenskins in Warhammer 40k. With that in mind, in the video we'll talk through each of the Ork clans in turn, a bit about their lore and any notable greenskins from the clan, then talk about their in-game rules and how strong I think they're going to be going forward. So let's jump straight into it, and start with the biggest and baddest of the lot, the Goffs. Clad in their no-nonsense black armour, the Goffs are the largest and most aggressive of the clans, bigger and stronger than their greenskin peers, and see themselves as the pinnacle of what is Orky, and with no mucking about, charge straight into the enemy to lay about them in the honourable way with slugger and chopper. The Goffs often take to war in great numbers, green tides of boys charging at the enemy howling, with numbers far too great for the enemy to possibly cut down. Deathskull Thraka, the biggest and most dangerous Ork around, is one such Goff, as is boss Zagstruck, one of the leaders of the Storm Boys. This very Orky melee approach is most certainly reflected in game, their clan culture giving them exploding sixes to hit in combat, so each 6 that you roll generates an additional hit. On top of that, they also get +1 strength on the charge, excellent value for standard Orks, who are going to be striking at strength 5 with that, wounding things like Space Marines on a 3+. They're 2 really good combat buffs stacked one on top of the other, and basically if all you want is raw combat damage out of your greenskin army buff, then the Goffs have most certainly got you covered for that. They'll be stronger than the other clans in the vast majority of cases. Their Warlord trait also amps up their melee, +1 attack and an extra AP -1 certainly does no harm, though I personally do prefer Brutal but Cunning from the main book. Their relic is the Iron Gob, a 2+ chance to cause D3 mortal wounds after your war boss has fought, could be enough to finish off a potent enemy character that's already been injured, or just kill an extra couple of infantry. Finally, they have a 2 command point stratagem where you can amp up their melee damage even further, so not only do their hit rolls of 6 explode, but the hit rolls of 5 do as well. To be honest though, the stratagem isn't amazing value, it's a big 2 command points and only increases your combat damage by around about 20%, and it's only ever going to be worth it on the biggest and fightiest things in your army. Overall though, Goffs really are strong, their passive buffs seem maybe the strongest out of any of the clans, and if you just want to beat the enemy into submission in close combat, then they're rarely going to be a bad choice. Having Ghazghkull around can really help out the army as well, getting both the War and Speed War rules at the same time, making for a potentially fairly flexible Ork army with a bunch of different strategies happening at once. Next up we come to the Evil Sunz, speed freaks to the core, who epitomise the Orky love of going very fast, and will always engage the foe on all manner of war machines, bikes, buggies, planes and trucks being the order of the day. Speed freak formations go so fast that they can really perplex Imperial commanders, entire formations redeploying at the drop of a hat when the boss decides they're going to go and chase down something else. Evil Sunz bikes and vehicles are always painted red, which the Orks have a firmly held belief makes them go faster, and because the sheer collective will of the greenskin race does seem to manifest itself in reality, indeed Evil Sunz red painted vehicles will tend to outstrip their other rivals' war machines. Some notable Evil Sunz include Zardsnark the Ripper and Wozdacker Gutsmech, both of which are notable bike bosses, blazing a trail of destruction across many worlds. In-game, their clan culture gives all units +1 inch movement, boosted up to +2 inches for speed freaks, and +1 to their advance rolls as well. I'd argue that this might actually be more important on the non-speed freak units. Slower Ork units will really like the extra couple of inches move and advance that they get, helping them get to grips with the enemy that little bit faster. In addition, they also get to advance and shoot with assault weapons for no penalty, a rule that's a little bit redundant seeing as most assault weapons turned into Dakka weapons in the last decks, so unfortunately it doesn't really affect all that many models. It was a bit sad that they lost the +1 to charge rolls that they had previously, that made it so much for a better culture. Otherwise, their Warlord trait can allow one core unit within 6 inches to charge even if they fell back or advanced, could be quite good to get some turn 1 Warbike or Deathcopter charges on the go. And I'd say their relic is maybe the single best thing that draws me to their culture competitively. Resmecha's redder armour gives you a +2 inch to your move, and then enemies within engagement range will fight last. The extra movement is really quite nice, particularly on top of the regular Evil Sunz buff, they're going to be going incredibly quickly, but fighting last is just really quite nice to have when you are charging into the enemy. It means you can coordinate multiple assaults just that little bit easier. Finally, their stratagem Drive-By Dakka allows them to shoot and then move again. It could just allow you to move one unit really far across the board, or potentially allow you to move out, shoot with a unit, and then move it back into cover, hopefully somewhere where it can't be shot when your opponent tries to retaliate. Overall, there's a fair amount of helpful stuff here. I'd say the fighting last ability is maybe the most powerful thing. Easy first turn charges don't hurt, and the culture will allow the units just to reposition that little bit faster and get to where they need to be. In any case, if you'd like to go really fast, then the Evil Sunz might be for you. Moving on, we come to the Deathskulls. These lucky blue gits are a superstitious bunch of looters who have a well-deserved reputation for stealing anything that they can get their hands on, whether it's enemy technology or things from other orcs, repurposing it, strapping it back together in the form of various great big war machines, and attacking with the support of all sorts of mechanical contraptions when they make war. They have a large amount of looters and vehicles present in their forces, and it's easy to spot a Deathskull's force a while off as they daub themselves in lucky blue paint, which they believe has the power to turn away bullets or guide their shots exactly where they need to go. One notable Deathskull is Mad Doc Grotznik, the demented pain boy who stitched Ghazghkull back together, and is just as likely to heal your wounds as he is to cut you into small pieces and experiment on you. In-game, their culture allows them to reroll one hit or wound roll every time they shoot or fight, meaning that should add up to a fair amount more damage, particularly on very high strength, high damage attacks. Their looting nature gives them objectives secured on all their infantry, which can be pretty helpful for wresting objectives away from the enemy with units like Commandos and Storm Boys, and they also enjoy a 5+ feel no pain type save against mortal wounds, which could be pretty helpful if you do happen to run into some enemy psychers or something. Their trait is a slightly weird one, and not one that I think is enormously strong to be honest. You get to ignore Lookout Sir within 12 inches, but most orc characters don't really have enough meaningful firepower to make that count. In addition, you also get one command point every time you kill a vehicle within 6 inches of your warlord. That bit's not terrible, but not very reliable to be honest. Their relic is maybe a bit more fun. The fixer-uppers augment the mech's repair abilities. You roll a dice and on a 2+, your vehicle regenerates one more wound than it would have normally, and also if there happens to be an enemy vehicle within 12 inches, then it takes D3 mortal wounds. I found the lore behind that relic really quite good fun. Basically the idea is that the mech's tools automatically teleport the bits out of nearby enemy tanks, and then he uses them to repair nearby orc vehicles. That certainly fits in well with the Deathskulls lore. Finally, their stratagem for 2 command points is Wreckers, and it gives you a +1 to wound against vehicles with either core or character units. Again, maybe a little bit focused, but will certainly give you a decent power boost against armoured targets. Overall, much like Evil Sunz, I would say that they're a fair bit weaker compared with their previous edition. They used to get far more rerolls than they do now, plus the 6+ invul save I think was often superior to the 5+ feel no pain against mortal wounds. I'd say Obsec is now the main thing that's going for them. The extra bit of damage and the Wrecker's stratagem certainly help out though. I find them a really fun clan though, with some cool lore. Moving on, we come to the sneaky greenskin tacticians of the Blood Axes. These guys are mercenary and military-minded orcs who love overly complicated battle plans and wearing all manner of different camouflage, and often the same orc will wear multiple different colours of camouflage, sort of defeating the purpose. There are a great amount of Commandos and Storm Boys amongst their ranks, and while some people have theorised that they were originally designed to be a leader clan for the orcs, the reality has wound up being that all the other greenskins just don't trust them, due to their decidedly unorky ways of thinking far too hard, and even negotiating with humans in the Imperium when it suits their purposes. One notable blood axe is Boss Snickrot of the Red Skull Commandos, a terrifying legend of Armageddon, an orc that can slip through enemy lines entirely unnoticed. In-game, their culture gives them 2 really quite wide-reaching and helpful buffs. Their units all get cover when they're shot from greater than 18 inches away, and they can all fall back and either choose to shoot or choose to charge. I feel like both of these rules synergize quite well with really quite a lot of orky units, particularly gunline or vehicle units, but I feel like it's rarely going to be the go-to clan for any one unit, as they tend to offer a lot more flexibility rather than straight up damage and durability all the time. Their Warlord trait and relics are both good ones though. Their Warlord trait allows them to redeploy 3 units at the start of the game, potentially putting them in strategic reserve for free if they need to, and their relic allows them to do a fair bit of command point farming, rolling a 4+ each command phase to generate a new CP. Finally, their stratagem can be interesting. 1 command point is to put an infantry unit into strategic reserve if they're less than 3 inches from a board edge, and that could be really quite helpful for the objective game later on in the battle, jumping them out behind the enemy and maybe doing actions or engaging enemies on home field objectives. I feel like the Blood Axes are maybe a slightly underrated clan in the game. You don't often see entire armies being run of them, but between a culture with 2 useful traits and a good warlord trait relic and stratagem, I certainly think that a Blood Axe army could do some very good work if more people decided to give it a go. Overall though, if you do want an Orc army that epitomises Morky cunning, then the Blood Axes might be for you. Next up we come to the bright yellow armour of the Bad Moons, ostentatiously showing off Orcs, who are ever keen to flout their vast wealth which they acquire by their teeth growing faster than any other clan. As teeth are used for greenskin currency, this means they usually will acquire the best guns and gear around, though the rest of the Orcs aren't particularly concerned about this, as of course if you really want the teeth of a Bad Moon, you can just go out and forcibly take them from them if you're enough of an Orc to do so. Aside from showing off their vast wealth though, the Bad Moons tend to make war from great big battle fortresses, and although of course they love close combat as much as any Orc, they have a particular love for Daka, and they tend to run around with far more shooters and crackling energy weapons compared with some of the other Orcs. One notable Bad Moon is Nazdreg Ugg Erdgrub, Ghazghkul's second in command at the Battle of Armageddon, famed for great greenskin teleporter technology assaults, overrunning entire continents of the world at a time. In-game, the Bad Moon's love for Daka manifests in all sorts of ways. They get plus 6-inch range to all Daka and heavy weapons, giving you far more choice of your targets, and that can be quite helpful on units like Shooter Boys, which means they can get their shooters in Daka range even after being teleported into battle. In addition to that, any 6s to wound also give the guns an extra pip of AP, particularly useful on low strength weapons like shooters or Daka guns. Their warlord trait is the best armor teeth can buy, for a 4+ invul and a +1 to their saving throw. Their relic is the Gobshot Thunderboss, essentially having the profile of 2 Scorchers joined together. That will clear out enemy infantry pretty efficiently, and their stratagem is maybe the single best thing about their entire faction in-game. Just 1 command point for exploding 6s to hit, so in the shooting phase every hit roll of a 6 will generate 1 more hit. That's usually going to be a 50% damage boost on any Orky unit with a standard ballistic skill of 5+. Overall, if you want an Orky army that's really focused on firepower, maybe a bunch of speed freaks and Daka jets and things, the Bad Moons really aren't a bad choice whatsoever. They're very solid for shooting damage, and their stratagem is really great. Next up we come to the Snakebites, who are seen as backward and primitive even by Orky standards. Snakebites tend to exist in low-tech tribal warbands, sneering at the other clans' use of technology and preferring their old ways, because who needs newfangled energy weapons and big wagons when you can just crump your enemy with a stone club? Life in Snakebite clans is often short and brutal, and this means that only the strong survive, meaning that Snakebite Orcs are enormously resilient, and they're also famed for having the strongest squigs and grots around, large numbers of beast snaggers in their ranks, and very few if any mech boys. Notable Snakebites include Beast Boss Mogsrog Scragbad, the rider of the Great White Squig, and Zogrod Wartsnagger, the outcast runt herd who for some reason bothers to train his Gretchen into an efficient fighting force. In-game, the Snakebites culture means that they're only ever wounded on a 4+ for every weapon that isn't strength 8 or higher. This culture is kind of okay, though as Orcs are quite as tough as they are, it only comes into effect every so often. For standard boys, it's only going to matter on strength 6 or 7 weapons, or something that gets an innate +1 to wound, say Blood Angels on the charge. When it matters, it will be really quite nice, but a lot of the time it won't. I'd say their other bit is potentially more powerful though. You get +1 to wound for any charging squig units, things like Squig Hog Boys, the Kill Rig, or the Beast Boss on the Squigosaur. This is a really big damage output for them, and provided you are charging, will generally outcompete Goffs against quite a lot of targets, though of course doesn't work in protracted combats or if you're being charged yourself. Their Warlord trait, solely as a Squig-Off, isn't too bad either. They have a 4+ chance to resurrect on death with D3 wounds remaining. Could be a bit of a nightmare if your opponent manages to put down a really tough character, such as a Beast Boss on a Squigosaur, and then it just proceeds to get back up and cause more carnage next turn. The relic Brog's Bugs Bomb is a one-shot 6-inch grenade weapon. It does 3d6 strength 5 AP -1 and damage 1 hits, hitting on a 2+, and then every unit within 6 inches also takes a mortal wound. Kind of okay, but not really auto-include, I think. And finally, their stratagem is quite a nice one to have, a 1 command point one to allow you to try and deny the witch as if you were a psyker. Can just give you a shot at clearing the single most annoying psychic power each turn. Overall, I'd say that Snakebites are really quite strong, they're also quite niche with the units that they're good with. If you're taking an absolute ton of squig units, then they're going to be great, otherwise maybe not so much. Finally, for the major Ork clans, we get to the Freebooters, which aren't really so much a clan in their own right, but more of a background culture amidst the Greenskins, an ever-present Ork mercenary force of pirates, bandits, and blades for hire, who will sell their services to the highest bidder and fight for whichever boss can afford their services. Freebooters' forces will often include a great number of flash kits amongst their ranks, and they'll typically operate under a pirate captain, flying the flag of the Jolly Orc from atop their kill cruiser. One such captain is Captain Badrog, an orc of famed wealth, who in-game can give some nice shooting boosts to nearby flash kits. The Freebooters culture is a really interesting one. Basically your objective in each phase is to try and kill one enemy unit, and when you have, the rest of the army gets a +1 to hit against everything. When this is active, it makes the greenskin shooting just so efficient. Typically you're going to be hitting with 5s for most things, that will go to hitting on 4s, so it's around about a 50% damage buff, potentially across your entire army, provided you can kill something fairly early. I feel like it's the sort of buff that really needs quite careful playing around. If you can kill one enemy unit without sacrificing too much firepower, then the rest of the shooting phase is going to go very well indeed. I'd argue for this reason alone, they might often be better than the Bad Moons for a pure shooting orc army. Otherwise though, their warlord trait killer reputation gives them a -1 leadership and -1 combat attrition bubble. Maybe that's not so relevant, but a +1 leadership is actually quite good for nearby orcs. Orcs in the new codex definitely have a morale issue. Then their relic and stratagem can actually work hand in hand. The relic gives a 6-inch aura of removing obsec from enemy units, and for 1 command point you can get the loot and give one of your own infantry units obsec as well. That combo could easily steal an objective off an enemy. Overall, I do think that Freebooters are maybe one of the stronger orc armies, though they could be really quite underwhelming unless you play with them quite carefully. You'd really have to think through the order of what things are going to shoot and fight when, but if you get it right, you're going to deal some hefty damage. So that's it for the main clans, but I thought that we'd just round up by talking about the Beast Snaggas and the Speed Freaks, two of the Orc subcultures that really are quite prevalent through the Orc Codex. Beast Snaggas and Speed Freaks are both denoted by keywords on Orc datasheets, so you can still have, say, like Goff Beast Snagga Boys or Deathskull Warbikers, but they just have a few synergies with each other and some unique warlord traits and relics. In the background, the Beast Snaggers have a lot in common with the Snakebites, Monster Hunters and Squig Breeders, who love nothing better than bringing down the biggest and best prey that the enemy has to offer, and they got really quite a big miniature release with the new Orc Codex. Characters such as Beast Bosses, Zogrob Wartsnagger, the Pain Boss and the Whir Boys, and other big hefty Squig drawn units such as the Killrig and the Squighog Riders. The Speed Freaks basically have quite a lot in common with the Evil Sunz. I'd say that most Evil Sunz are Speed Freaks, though not all Speed Freaks are necessarily Evil Sunz, and they are the Orcs who love to go fast on wagons, buggies, trucks and planes. The Speed Freak units are the 6 different unique types of buggy, including the Speed Boss Deathkiller Wartrike, the snazzy new Deathcopters and the Warbikes. They'll all particularly like the Speedwire upgrade to get the most out of their Dakka. So I hope you've enjoyed a bit of a wander through the Orc clans, and let me know your favourite down in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, or I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming, with new ones being released basically every day. Finally, if you have been enjoying the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention the Auspex Tactics Patreon page, which you can find down in the video description. Making all these videos does take a fair amount of time and effort, so if you are enjoying quite a bit, any support is enormously appreciated. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with the chance to win some really big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, then the link is down in the video description below. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.